Yes, we had 2 cans of Febreze in there, and
Sounds kind of gross.
depending on which person was in there, you could go in and smell and almost know who was in there.
That's very interesting.
Yeah.
Well, this is the intro.
perfect.
Welcome to the Josh Brooks podcast. I'm here with Sergeant Gunny, First Class Platoon, Sebastian Neubauer. I don't know what your rank or title is.
So right now is Corporal.
Corporal.
April 1st.
Yeah.
As
April
long as everything
Fools.
goes first, I'll be getting promoted to sergeant. So
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So I don't know anything about the military,
Yeah.
but that sounds impressive. Is it impressive?
not anymore.
Okay.
I feel like, going back to when we were actually in even before like the past 20 years when we were in conflict. So like going back to Vietnam, Korea, World War II. Being a sergeant there, you actually had a lot of. I mean, realistically, even in Afghanistan, sergeants had a lot of role.
Yeah.
Right now, it's like you're still getting babysitted.
Yeah.
Like it used to be, you find something to do, bring it up to your leaders, and then they either approve it or deny it. And then if they approve it, then you have to figure everything out, and then you have to delegate it down to your corporals, and then they will tell all the junior marines what to do. But you don't babysit your corporals either. So like you just say, hey, this got approved. Now we're going to do it.
Yeah.
And then you don't tell your corporals what to do because they're going to be the ones that actually figure it out. But they're not going to be the ones who actually figured out. The Lance corporals are going to be the ones that actually figured it out. And so it just keeps going down and down and down until like the dude who's been there for 2 weeks and he's like, I don't know what to do.
I was just given this list of things to do.
Yeah, exactly.
I just got here. I don't know
Exactly.
anything. What level is Lance Corporal?
That's E3. So
Is that like high?
no, the for the Marine Corps, it's private first class, Lance Corporal, and those are all free. Because there's no in order for you to not get promoted, there has to be specific paperwork in place to like not allow you to get promoted. But to get corporal and to get a sergeant, everything above that too, you have to meet specific certifications, or not certifications, but like you have to have certain time and grade, time and service. You have to have a certain score. You have to be selected, and then you, depending on where you're at, you have to go on a board.
Yeah.
When you go on that board, then you have to get approved by the staff NCOs. And yes, like it's a bit of a process, but
That sounds like a lot of work.
yeah, I mean, you're supposed to be given a lot more responsibility, so they want to make sure they choose the right people.
Yeah. All I know about Marine rank is 2 things.
Yeah.
One, there's some Facebook page of memes I follow called like Lance Corporal memes.
Is it like Terminal Lance or something?
Yeah,
like that?
Terminal Lance. Yes, that's exactly what it is. And then
Those are funny.
The second thing is Master Chief. From like Halo.
Being a space marine.
Yeah, that's all. That's all I know.
Yeah, those are like 2 completely different things. I know a lot of people who when the Space Force was coming up, they were like, "Oh, I'm gonna go into the Space Force and I'm gonna be a space marine." And that was a big thing that a lot of people were like, "I want to be the first space marine." Blah, blah, blah. And that's not a thing.
That's so funny. I still don't know. Is Space Force real?
Yeah, it is, absolutely.
It is, okay.
But they don't do what a lot of people think that they actually do.
Is it like NASA?
No.
What is it?
They just... So before the Space Force is an actual thing, the Air Force would do everything that the Air Force does right now, but then they would also do this subcategory of a lot of satellite stuff. So like they would they're not really launching a lot of satellites, but they would be maintaining satellites. And then what they're actually looking at and positional wise, and there's a lot of stuff that goes into it. But now that's what the Space Force mainly focuses on. And then
I had no idea.
As well as every other branch, they have different stuff going to like security forces or whatnot to protect their actual bases. But most of the time, that's also covered down by the Air Force because the Space Force is like this big.
Okay, so the Space Force doesn't do a lot of stuff in space.
No.
Oh,
I mean, what level of space are you talking about? Because
right.
I mean the atmosphere and then which level.
I'm just thinking about like guys like bouncing around the moon with guns.
I wish.
Like that's all. Like
Fun
that's
fact:
all I can think.
a gun will not shoot in space.
Well, that's what I was about to ask because it's in a vacuum. Like what?
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
there's no oxygen to.
You'd have to have like rocket propelled bullets.
Well, so there was this actual really cool thing. I forget what it was called. But it was back in the Cold War.
Yeah.
And America was like, all right, how can we have weapons in space like sign the treaty, whatever. We can't have nukes in space.
Mm-hmm.
So like, how can we create a nuclear weapon or a weapon that is as destructive as a nuclear weapon, and then have it be in space? That way we can just boom. And what they want to do is they had these tungsten rods.
Oh, is this Star Wars?
No.
No. Wasn't there an actual program under Nixon called like Star Wars?
No, it was called the Rods of God or something like that.
What the?
And they would just like, they'd be like, all right, here's our target. And then they'd just be like, all right, we're going to drop 4 rods. Because they were playing for like 25 rods per satellite. And these things weighed like 250 pounds.
Yeah.
And they just drop them from space. Devastate a city.
Yeah.
But yeah, when further researching it, even dropping something in space, like, well, in our atmosphere, from like, I think there was a video Veritasium did about it, and they were trying to test it, and they even put fins on it, and they even built mechanical fins so they could actually guide it too, and it was impossible. They were like, the closest they got was like 200 feet away from their target, and they were only like
pretty far.
300 feet. So it was way off from where they wanted it to go. And so, I mean, just like the smart scientists who are actually doing the math before they put it up there, they figured out this is not feasible, because they wanted it to be where you could drop it and then like 30 seconds later, because that's how long it would approximately take to hit the Earth, to be able to drop it anywhere.
Wait, it would only take 30 seconds to get to the Earth?
Yeah.
That's really
fast. Because it's so dense that it would just, and you got to think, because like the air wouldn't really slow down either.
Right.
It's just
a
gravity.
Yeah.
That's pulling it down.
Yeah.
And so it would just be zooming through the air.
That's scary.
Yeah.
I think they, I'm not even trying to make a joke, but I think they like based one of the Call of Duties off of that, like Call of Duty Ghosts.
Oh,
like it opens up with like all this like stuff falling from the sky, but that must be where they took it from.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I never played Ghost. I think I started playing video games after Ghost. Yeah, I think Modern Warfare was the first one I started to actually play. Yeah.
That was a good one.
That was a good one.
Yeah.
Modern Warfare 2 is not too bad.
Yeah, not bad. It's kind of like the same game, just number 2.
I like the DMZ version in it,
That is, I hate it.
Why?
Because I just die. Like, that's all I
Are you bad?
Yeah, I'm the worst. I'll play like DMZ and I'm like driving and I'm like, don't me on my mic, like, don't shoot. I'm like, stop. We went in with like my friends went in before me and they got the chemist's gun, whatever, the X18 or something. No,
it's the M13 Bravo.
The M13 Bravo. And so he was like, all right, just go back in and like you can drop it to him and he can pick it up.
That's one really
good
good gun.
I was like, are you sure? And we lost it. We couldn't even get in with the gun and get out.
Killing the chemist is difficult.
Yeah.
Me and my buddy did it twice. Me and my buddy got pretty solid, and as a team we played really well. He started to play with me because he's stupid good at video games, and he would play he would play solos, and he would go in and sometimes win a 1v3 and sometimes lose a 1v3, but most of the time he could take 1v2s 90% of the time by himself.
That's crazy.
And he 1v1s every time. We started to play together, and then at first, and this is like about a 3-4 month process. At first I would just stay back and snipe, because I'm really good at sniping. I think the longest kill I had was like 480 meters in that game.
That's really good.
And like the dude was moving the opposite side of a hill, and it dropped over the hill and domed him.
You can do that?
Yeah. There's bullet drop, and it was crazy.
How did you aim?
Just over the hill. I mean, because like I use aim just like a regular optic, and, fourth standia line just over.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not good.
It was a crazy shot.
I just do run and gun. Like I can usually get like a top 3 in free for all on a map that I like have memorized.
Okay.
But like
I've never played free for all.
Really?
Yeah.
Warzone.
I don't like Warzone.
Yeah.
Just go in and grab something random now.
Yeah.
But no, so DMZ reminds me a lot of a game called Escape from Tarkov.
Yeah.
Except nicer. Like Escape from Tarkov is brutal.
Yeah.
If you die, you start with nothing.
That's what I've heard.
Yeah.
Fun fact. Well, I guess I can share this on the internet. I am an admin on one of the largest Escape from Tarkov Facebook groups that I've never played. Somebody invited me to the group,
And you became an admin.
Yeah, they were like begging people to be admins to because so we got like all these spam posts from India.
Okay.
It was like these Indian guys and like people from Pakistan like trying to sell Escape from Tarkov shirts and like post like YouTube links to like trash. So they're like, hey, we need to put like post approval on, and they were like, we need people to approve posts. I was like, I can help. So they make me admin, and I'm like one of 3 admins on this page.
No way.
And I've never played the game.
That's hilarious. I was in a few different because I used to play Escape from Tarkov a lot, and I was in a few big Discord chats for it, and or whatever they're called, communities, or there was a lot of really good players there. I was okay at it. I had a positive KD, but not by much. And it's just I don't really like that game because everything comes down to either the armor that you wear or the bullet that you shoot. You could have the same gun, wearing the same body armor, and then I shoot one bullet and you shoot a different bullet.
Yeah.
And I'll kill you in 1 shot and you kill me in 5.
Yeah.
And it's just... Yeah. It's insane. And it's super difficult to get the good ammo in the game. And it's super difficult to get the good armor in the game.
Because it's like, when you lose stuff, you lose stuff. Right?
Yeah, it's everything that you're wearing, except for an armband, and then what's in your alpha. Like, you have a specific case. And a lot of people call it, like, if you get something really good in the game, they'll be like, oh, put it up your butt. And then you put it in that case. Because you come out with everything in that case. So like, it's like the alpha is a 2x2, the gamma is a 3x2, the and then whatever, and then you go up to the kappa, which is a 4x3, I think, and that's like, but that one you can't buy. You can buy the other ones, and like, and then every time the wipe happens, you restart back with that specific case that you bought. But the kappa, you lose every time. Yeah. Because you have to complete all the quests or tasks, whatever they're called, and then be able to unlock it. And
that sounds awful.
Yeah, and then the wipe happens like every 6 months, so you lose. You could get up to like 30 million rubles, level 40, and then have like really good stuff.
Can you like hide them on the map?
No, because if you don't make it out, everything gets lost.
Oh dang.
Yep.
That stinks.
Yep.
It's kind of like RuneScape.
I never played RuneScape. One of my buddies tried to. There's another game. It's not Left 4 Dead, but it's another like open world game where you go in, and it's kind of like a battle royale.
Club Penguin.
I think that's exactly what it is. I don't know what's up with Club Penguin. It must be making a comeback.
Is it really?
I don't know. It's like the 5th time I've heard it in the past like 2 months.
We saw. We saw some sign at the airport, like on the bridge to get onto the plane.
Oh, yeah.
With like some like safety warning. I'll post it in the video, but it had a piece of clip art from Club Penguin, like on an official like Southwest memo that an employee printed and put on the bridge to get onto the plane. And we're like, why is Club Penguin here?
Oh, that's really funny.
It's interesting too to see like the wide breadth of people that play video games, because I feel like that's something like anyone can do. Anyone can pick up a console. Anyone can, well, if you can find the parts, anyone can, build a computer, buy a computer, and just play. And like there was a commercial that came out years ago, I think for Modern Warfare 2, like the original Modern Warfare 2.
Yeah.
And it had like LeBron James and like Jimmy Kimmel and like other people, maybe like Lady Gaga was in it or something, and they're all playing the video game together. Yeah. And it's really like you could be playing online and have no idea who you're playing with. Yeah. And so it's kind of like, it's cool, like brings people together. Yeah. Although the lobbies now are so much softer than they were than original Modern Warfare 2. Like, yeah. You get banned for saying like dumb.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I never had a, like, when I grew up, I had a Wii.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that was it. And in 2019, in like August, I was in Missouri for my schoolhouse, and then I didn't have anything, and I was just studying, and my buddies were just like, buy a gaming laptop, and then just, we have a few good suggestions, and their first suggestion was a terrible game. No, it wasn't a terrible game. It was a terrible suggestion for someone who's never played video games before. Yeah. They suggested Rainbow Six Siege.
That's a hard game.
It's a very hard game. And it's got like a crazy amount of different controls to be able to do a bunch of different stuff, and it's super competitive. So like if you go in a random lobby and you're like, hey, I'm very bad, I'm brand new at gaming, they'd be like, all right, well, you better get 6 kills. And it's like, You die all 5 rounds, and you lose 5 in a row, and you're like,
right.
and then everyone just blames you. It's like, dude, I've never played before.
Yeah, yeah.
But
that's why I like Call of Duty, because like it's the same flavor, it's the same meal every single time.
Yeah,
you pay $70 every year or two to get the new game, and it's not very good, but you know what to expect. It's like McDonald's. Like, it's not very good, but you know what you're gonna expect. And you know what you're gonna get,
and it's kind of reliable, you know, and it's something that you and your buddies will always go to.
Yeah,
and just like a few years ago, going to church it was Sunday night after the evening. Yeah, go over to McDonald's.
Yeah. I thought you were gonna say like half the youth groups we played zombies because we did that too. You, me, and Josh Gordon.
We played zombies
on like Call of Duty World War II.
That's right.
Yeah.
I forgot about that.
That was fun. That was a crazy game.
I'm terrible at any zombie game.
Oh, I'm the worst.
I'm so bad.
I have fun for like the first like 10 rounds.
Yeah, and then it's like
yeah, I guess I'll
it's like everything gets super hard, and it's like, why try anymore?
Yeah, I can't get 6 kills, and then everyone blames me. Well, speaking of video games, because what you do in the Marines is kind of like out there. The CBRN stuff.
Yeah,
like this is like, guys, this is like classified stuff. So
some of it.
So don't listen to this podcast if you don't have the clearance level. So CBRN is chemical, biological.
Yeah.
Is it radioactive?
Radiological,
and nuclear.
Yeah.
And tungsten.
Maybe. It's a chemical.
That's classified. So what does that entail? What does CBRN? What is it?
So, you know, a lot of people just say CBRN. It used to be called NBC for those older folks that might be listening. Same thing as NBC. So typically, there's 2 different types of jobs that I might do. There's working in an S3 or being in a CBRN platoon.
Okay.
What I prefer is being in a CBRN platoon because we do hazmat response. That is my bread and butter. I'm pretty solid at that. And I've reached out to a few different. I've gone through a lot of qualifications that nobody else in my field has gone through.
Oh, wow.
Just because of the last billet that I had in Korea. So I was, you know, pretty blessed to be able to have that position, but it was a lot of work. But it got me a lot of extra stuff that nobody else has. But hazmat response, so in the schoolhouse, we go through 1 class, or technically it's 2, because we go through hazmat awareness and then hazmat operations. And then there's 2 more after that. There's hazmat technician, and then I've gone to that one. That one is a phenomenal course. You learn a lot, and then you get qualified to wear a specific suit called a level A, which is like a big spacesuit kind of. And on the inside of the suit, you have a bottle that you wear on the back, like of compressed air. It's 4,500 psi, so it should last you. Or it's about 4,200 psi because you can't fill it up to 4,500. Because the gas expanding on the inside and you don't want to explode. But
it's probably a good thing.
Yeah. So we fill it about 42, and then when it cools down, it's actually about 4,000. But so we put that on, and then we put our mask on, hook up to the air, and then the suit goes on.
Oh.
So we're fully encapsulated.
Yeah.
And in that you can do anything.
Yeah.
Except do anything. Because you have 0 dexterity when you're in that thing.
Yeah.
The face shield will fog up, and it just gets crazy difficult to see.
Yeah.
We make sure before people, and comms is also very difficult because when you're inside, unless if you're wearing one specific thing, which when I was at the MU and getting deployed, that is what we'd wear. But when I was at the MA, they were like, oh, no throat mics. So throat mics are the like certain mics that go around your throat, and then they just read the vibrations of your throat.
They can do that?
Yeah.
Wow.
So like, I don't know the exact science behind it, but it reads the vibration of your throat, and somehow it understands the openness of your mouth.
Yeah.
And then like whatever like you're doing with your mouth, then it'll go through the microphone or the radio.
Yeah.
And it'll be like, you know, that's what I said.
Yeah.
It's crazy technology.
Is that like the things? So you know how like the anti-smoking ads they used to have, and the person puts the thing out, they're like, "Hello, my name is Sebastian." Is that what that is?
No, it's nowhere near.
All right.
If you've ever seen 13 Hours at Benghazi,
I have. But I don't remember that part.
John Krasinski. I just watched it on the 13-hour flight back from Korea. Oh my goodness. Terrible. John Krasinski has a throat mic on in that movie, and I think it's actually
go back and watch it
in one of the like the cover pictures of the movie. There's a picture of him, and you see this like just black strip right over his throat.
Oh, okay.
And that's a throat mic, because typically it'll be like the actual thing that reads, and then over the top will be a Velcro piece to make sure it doesn't go loose and go slide down. But
yeah, honestly, the attention to the level of detail in that film was incredible.
Yeah, that movie was very well made.
They really did those guys justice.
Yeah.
By putting that story out there and doing a good job with it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Honestly, there hasn't been another movie made like that recently. Maybe the pandemic had to do something with it, but I don't feel like I've heard of
like anything
something
up to
that thorough.
Yeah.
Yeah. There was one on Netflix, but I didn't end up watching it. But I don't know if it was as good. So when you do hazmat response, like obviously there's training, and you might have situations like that. But is most of the stuff you do for the public? Like you go into a city where something has happened, or is it mostly on base?
So
there are issues.
Yeah. So typically, it could be either. Realistically, like it could be anywhere in the world. In a what we call it a real life situation, what'll happen is the way that we would actually get called in is if the grunts, like the actual infantrymen, were to be going in country, and then if they were to go into town, go house, whatever, if they were to find some sort of lab, then they call us, or they call EOD, or they call both.
Okay. And
then that's just depending, like if they know it's being made, then they call one of us. If they don't know it's being made, they call both of us. And
so you're talking about like drugs, weapons, both?
Yep. So all of it. We train for illicit labs. We train for clandestine labs. We train for unknown situations. We train for all sort of chemical warfare agents, biological warfare agents, radiological agents, and then nuclear weapons as well. And in that, I was actually really lucky to be able to train the MU after I left. Like, so I was there for 2 deployments, and then when I left, they wanted me back there because they wanted me to set up all the labs, because there's like 1 week of extensive training they go through before they go on ship. And they're like, yeah, we want you to be able to come and make the labs for us. And so one time I made a meth lab. That was a very fun lab.
like a real meth lab?
Well, it was really close, but it wasn't real.
That's crazy.
So technically, in all this, it's all training. So we don't have the real chemicals out there.
Sure, yeah.
And so I didn't have the real chemicals, but I set up the right chemical process.
Yeah.
And
that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
There's a lot of ways to make meth, but
oh yeah, you could go around Central Maine and find like 20 different ways to make it.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. There's 3 main ways to make meth, but we won't dive into that. One time I made all 6, there was 7 labs I made, and I made 6 out of the 7, because one of them, I was in there and I was popping yellow smoke inside the room. That way they had low visibility.
Oh, interesting.
And I didn't have anything on, so I was like breathing yellow.
Oh no.
And my nostrils were filled for like 4 hours because everything was just coming back up and out.
Right.
And it was rough. So I didn't get to build the lab that night, but Gunny Raider, who I was telling to you earlier, my Gunny at the MU, he is really good at bio. And so he made a biological warfare agent lab that night, and so that helped.
That's really cool. So you set up these situations for these guys to help them learn.
Yep.
So when you're making the lab, you do the research of like the different chemicals involved, what it might look like, and then you have them come in and they have to treat it properly.
Yeah. So we had all these guys, and meanwhile, all these people that are here that we're training are CBRN. So the same job that I do. It's just that I have more experience than they do, and more understanding. And so when they were about to go on ship, they go in a week, and they're in the field the entire time, sleeping in one place. We had about 6 or 7 different open buildings that we could go into and then make labs, and some of them were 2-3 story, and some were just 1. So it made the recon piece really interesting, because we tell them, all right, it's one of these 3 buildings, and then you need to find out which one it is, and then they have to do a specific thing, because like before they go into any building, they have to do a 360 recon around. Yeah. And at every single every outside wall, they have to radio up to their IC, their instant commander, and be like, we see this many windows, there's this many wall, there's this many stories that we can see. There's whatever. And if you can see into any of the rooms, then you say, okay, we can see that there's like, and try to like sketch out what it looks like. That way, when you go in, you already have an idea of what you're walking into. And yeah, so some of those ops lasted really long. Some like they were up to 6 to 8 hours. Some were as soon as 3 hours, but that was probably the quickest ones. But all that also depended on mission set too. Like if their mission was to go in and recon and sample, or if their mission was to recon, sample, extract, and decon, that's a lot of work. That's a lot of work for a 15-man team. But yeah, I would go in, we'd set up the labs, and then we'd evaluate how they do every single piece of it. So how's their communication? How is the recon team doing, the IC, the sampling team, the extract team, the decon team, and how do they work together as a team? If one person, like in their setup is very important, because if they don't do it quick enough, then there could be people downrange that if we have grunts downrange that are being affected, if we don't set up fast enough, then they could die.
Like in real life?
Yeah. So like let's say that they were to be exposed by something, and then 4 hours later we're actually be able to be there.
Oh, yeah.
They can't, like the other grunts are setting a cordon around. So like they're setting up security around the place. That way there's no bad guys that come in. And if we don't get there soon enough and set up quick enough to be able to go down in and save them, then there could be huge consequences. So we try to have, depending on the mission set that we have, it was a 12-minute setup time, which is rapid because we had everything in a pack. We'd hike in, and then we would get the mission brief, and then and by that time you're down like 8 minutes. Recon teams gotta drop their pack, get everything out of their pack, set it up, the detectors. Sampling team, first thing they should be doing is like setting up the detectors for the recon team or helping out decon, because we have certain specifications for like if before anybody goes downrange, you need to have emergency decon setup, which is super simple. You just need like 2 buckets out there, one of warm soapy water and then one of just water. Simple. And then after that, decon will continue setting up a regular decon line, and but then recon is getting into suit, which that can take a few minutes, making sure that their bottle is on, connected, set up to their mask, and then has to get checked out, and then go to the IC to get checked out, and then go downrange. And this all has to be done within 12 minutes.
Dude, that's not a lot of time.
Yeah. And some of the, like, if they're bringing a multi-ray down, which 99% of the time they are, because that detects for atmospheric. So if you were to go in somewhere and then notice that the oxygen level goes from 20.9, which is pretty much average, if you see that go down to like, 19.5, then that's a huge change in atmosphere.
That much, really?
So, and the reason why, because not a lot of people think about this either. When, especially in my field, they see, oh, well, we're still able to be in there, because the whole reason for having the actual like bottle on our back is to be able to have fresh oxygen to our mask.
Sure, yeah.
Because having a regular gas mask with filters on the side, we're just breathing the regular atmosphere, and how much oxygen is in that atmosphere, and just filtering the oxygen to us.
Yeah.
So if there's an oxygen deficient environment, that mask serves us no good.
Yeah.
Because
I never thought about that. That's true.
So whenever people see, because 19.5 to 23.5, that's the low and high end of oxygen that we can be in. Yeah. And I mean, anybody. So whenever you read your detector and you see 20.9 going on 19.5, well, something that detector isn't picking up is in that area, because 20-ish% of the atmosphere is oxygen.
Right.
The other 80% is like 78% nitrogen, 2% other stuff.
Right.
But if it's the same ratio, if oxygen changes by, that little much, the nitrogen changes by that much, and then it just all compiles. So like you have a lot of something in the air, and you don't know what it is, and you have to then figure it out. And
So you could potentially have enough oxygen, but simultaneously you could have too much of something else that could be harmful.
Exactly.
Interesting.
Like you could have carbon monoxide and not even know it.
Sure, yeah.
And that's, yes, it would push oxygen out of the area, and that's why people, pass out and then die from it.
Right.
But at the same time, like, sometimes detectors mess up or whatever, and it's like that's on the IC. That's for them to think and be like, okay, well, it went from this down to this. We're not going to downgrade, and we're going to say, because that's also always the mission set too, is like, the IC can say, okay, we're safe to be able to go from level Bs down to like mop gear, like the simplest, lowest form. Because that's always the safest for the individual that's downrange, because every time that you go up in suit from mop gear to level C to level B to level A, there's an increase to the risk of the individual that's downrange because of how much strain it puts on you to wear it. Even though it's like, you know, the level C to level B suit could be the same if you have a bottle on your back, but the like the actual difference in suit is like a difference in core temperature of like 4 degrees. And the difference,
that's a lot.
Yeah, and then from level B to level A is like 8 degrees.
Yeah.
So from level C to level A is like almost 15 degrees difference.
Yeah.
Like you were boiling up in those things, and especially down in Okinawa where it's hot. You know, we'd be down there in the daytime, and it'll be almost 100 degrees with 100% humidity, and people are just like, I got out of suit one time, and I dumped my boots out full of sweat.
What?
Yeah.
That's awful.
But I was okay. So I wasn't in a level A at that time, but I was in a level C. Yeah. So the sweat isn't supposed to be able to go through a level C, right? Because like water's not supposed to go in or out. Yeah. But it was very hot, and I was in that suit for like 8 hours that day. Yeah. And I was in the blazing hot sun. And by the time and I was still drinking water, because you can do that through the masks. And I wasn't even at the end of it. It was like, it was just before the end, and I was like, Doc, I need a break. And he's like, what's up? And I took off one of my boots, and I poured out like 3/4 of the entire boot. Because as I was walking, the boot, there was sweat coming out of the boot because my like leg and my foot was pushing it out. There was that much sweat in both of my boots.
That's awful.
Yeah, it was warm.
Yeah. So you have a lot of responsibility on your hands. Like when this stuff, like as you encounter like real world situations, and you know, hopefully it's nothing like ever too crazy or too serious, but even just training for this stuff, you have a lot of responsibility. Yeah. Because of the people who you're setting these places up for, who you're clearing these places out. And I think a lot of people think of our military in a lot of people think the biggest threat to us that our military encounters is people. But they don't often think about the trails they leave behind, or the things they leave behind that they might have to encounter. And so as you're seeing those, I mean, what's going through your mind when you think about decon, or when you think about cleaning these places up, or the guys who would come in after you? So actually,
that's a really good point, because one of those, that's a huge consideration for recon specifically, because like, let's just say, let's go to the Middle East, and then they would use a lot of unlabeled white, yellow, or blue jugs for stuff, right? Yeah. And a lot of times they'd also use those for IEDs. Right. And walking in there, we don't know anything about that jug. It's unmarked. Right. There's no labels on it or anything. So we would do the same thing in training. We would throw in random jugs. Not drugs, jugs. Sometimes like 35-gallon Blue Barrel.
Sure, yeah.
And we'd throw those in. Sometimes we would label them, sometimes we wouldn't. Yeah. And I remember one time I labeled, this is one of the training ops I set up. I'm proud of this lab. I'm going to talk about it a little bit.
Yeah. Go for it.
My chief one officer, when I was down there, he asked me to set up a lab, a radioactive lab specifically. And I was like, sir, I have the perfect idea. I was like, I want to make uranium glass and then put that inside of a mortar round. And then he thought about it, and he's like, you put uranium glass inside of the tip of a mortar round. Oh, no, it wasn't mortar, it was artillery. You send it down like 7 miles. When it explodes, all the shards of glass go into people. That's rough.
That's insane.
And
how do you think of this stuff? What's wrong with you?
Yeah, he said the same. He said the same exact thing. He was wondering what, like, if I was mentally deranged or something. Yeah. He was like, "Who told you this?" And I was like, "I don't know. I thought about it one day.
It's brilliant, but it's disturbing."
And I was like, "I don't know. I watched a video on how to make uranium glass one day, and then I thought about it, and I was like, that could be terrible." Yeah. And so I set up the lab. We had 3 155 artillery shells that we training artillery shells, and in order for an artillery round to be primed, it has to have like this like a little cone of the top, because it's very circular, right? And then it comes up to a cone. And then whenever you can like unscrew the top of it and it's flat on top,
Mm-hmm.
and then you fill it from there.
Okay.
You fill everything from the explosive and then all the way up, and then you can, if you want to add anything else, you put on top.
Mm-hmm.
So I set up the a uranium glass lab, and I had, it was very crude, but it would have worked. And I even I got really specific. I had yellow powder, and I mixed it with a lot of white powder to really dilute it, because it wouldn't really look really yellow, but it would have a little bit of tint to it.
Right.
And I put it inside of a blender, and because you'd have to like really mix it together, and then because it was supposed to be urinal nitrate and silica, or urinal nitrate and potassium silicate.
Okay.
And then you'd mix it together, put it inside of a kiln, and then that makes glass. Simple enough. And fun fact, this is actually done back in the days of like the radium girls. They would
What's
make
that?
the radium girls with the watches.
I have no idea what that is.
So watches used to be made with radium. Have you ever seen those?
Oh, like the ones that like glow in the dark?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
So, and what girls would used to do is because they would be the ones actually doing it while the men were at war.
Right.
They would like lick the tip of it, put it in the radium paint. That way it would stay like nice and fine.
Yeah.
And then they would be ingesting this radioactive material. They didn't know it was radioactive.
Nobody told them?
I don't think they knew. And then all these cases came out, like these girls were dying. There were some that had, like, they'd have major tooth loss and gum disease and cancer. And yeah, then it came out, radium's bad for you. Fun fact.
Yeah.
And yeah, but they would also make uranium glassware to do the same thing, so it would light up in the dark. So you can, but those are mostly safe.
Okay.
90% of the time, if you find it on like to be able to buy it, or if you go to garage sale and find some, it's gonna most likely be safe.
Yeah.
It gives off like 10 counts per second, which there's different ways to measure radioactivity, but typically, you know, if you're reading 10 counts per second, it's gonna be alpha radiation, and that's not a lot. That's not really that dangerous to you. I wouldn't put any water in that cup and drink from it, but that's me personally.
Yeah. I wouldn't lick a paintbrush with radium in it.
Yeah. I mean, if you're doing it for like 10 cents an hour back then,
oh my word.
Maybe.
Yeah, 10 cents an hour.
But yeah, so uranium glass, and I watched a video on how to make it, and then I put some, I made this like these little crystals, so it's like the crushed up glass, put it in the top of one of the artillery shells, and like that was the lab, and then underneath the staircase to be able to walk downstairs, kind of like your staircase, we'd put it underneath the staircase, and we had 2 that were already done.
Yeah.
And then in the corner, which would be like, because it's almost like this. If you'd walk down the stairs this way, the lab was right here.
Yeah.
And then it had been straight back there in that corner. I had this 5-gallon metal drum. And there's this very explosive chemical called TATP. There's TATP and TNTP are highly explosive. Like you touch it and it explodes.
Yeah.
I had these EOD guys show me this experiment they did, They had these chemists make them TATP, and it was like pure TATP. They put it inside of this clear PVC pipe thing, and they had like one little cut through, and there's a fine powder that was in there on a piece of paper. Yeah. And they were like 5 or 6 feet away with this wooden stick, and just go. They like lightly touch it, and just go, boom, and just blows up. Yeah. Is super explosive.
So you didn't put the real stuff in the 5-gallon drum?
No. No, because it was like this. It was a concrete floor. Yeah. So doing that would be like realistically, and this is what happened. I was like, you should look for a label on the 5-gallon drum. And they did, and what they did is they turned it, and I saw one spark, and I was like, give me your radio. No. And I was like, boom, over the radio, and their IC was like, what just happened? And I was like, your decon, I was like, decon, look down to the building. You see it in flames. I was like something huge. And I was like, you see the roof off the building, like flying or something. Because 5 pounds of that stuff would obliterate a house. Yeah. And especially in a metal drum. Right. And yeah, they, there's, and then they died. Yeah. Which is like the scary reality of my job. Yeah. For part of it. Right. And so that's why we always train to the hardest extent that we can think of.
Mm-hmm.
That way, in a real life situation, we're almost prepared for any situation.
Right.
Like if I can train you to be at my level of stuff, looking at the clandestine labs that we've actually found in Afghanistan, where they were making sarin or whatever they were biological agents, where they would literally take a table and then they would have for the biological agents, they would have a paper plate, whatever they were making, and then they would put it under a just like a trash bag for it to dry out.
That's crazy.
And then that would make a biological agent.
Yeah.
Like it's like 3 steps to make it. And so if you can train up to and pass at my level, then going into something like that, you should be completely safe and there should be no casualties.
Yeah.
So we would always try to train up to, a high level of skill. And there's always a lot of thought that has to go down of so many different things. Like you always have to be watching how much air you have. What's your buddy on air? Are there any civilians downrange? If they are, you have to be able to detain them, because if one were to come up, there's a simple tube right here. And if I go up to you and I go, twist, pull, push, and then now you have no air. Simple as that.
Yeah.
And we would do that sometimes. We'd have civilians downrange, and it would be like me and Gibson, or our chief and officer, and we'd go down and we'd try to fight these people downrange.
Yeah.
That way they can figure out, how do I detain these deranged people, like the meth lab one. Me and Gibson were down there. We were high on meth, so we weren't fighting people. But we were, okay, for those listening, we weren't really high on meth. We were acting like we were high on meth.
Right. Context.
Yeah. But we weren't fighting people, but something where it was random civilians.
Oh, yeah.
Like, seeing these crazy dudes coming in these big suits, like, what's going on? So, like, we'd go up and try to start conversations, but we wouldn't speak English. We would just say, like, trying to figure out what will they do in suit, not knowing what I'm thinking, what I'm planning on doing. And sometimes, like, if they would put hands on me, then I would put hands on them, and then I'd always go for that tube, or I'd go for the mask.
Yeah.
Because I know if they're breathing that mask, I want to breathe that mask.
Sure, yeah.
So I'd be like, give me that mask. And sometimes we'd have people go down, and sometimes they would be able to stop us. And
there was a training exercise I was a part of at Logan Airport in Boston when I was in college. I was a criminal justice major for a while, so I got invited to these different things, and we were practicing, like, how should the TSA and Mass State Police Troop F respond if there's an active shooting at Logan Airport. And so we're there at like 2 a.m. or whatever doing this, because they didn't want people around when we were training. So they told us, like, all right, run it again, but, give them a little bit more trouble. And so I was like, okay, you don't have to tell me, like, if I get a chance to give the TSA, like, some trouble, like, that sounds great. So I was like,
give it back to them.
Being real, like, belligerent and really rude. And we're out on the tarmac because we had to evacuate the airport as if there were an active shooter. Yeah. And the state police are, trying to get us all together and sort of quarantine us. And I said, I got to go back in. And they said, why? And I said, my bag's inside. I have to go back and got to get my luggage. Like, it's all inside. They said, no, you have to stay out here. I said, no, I have to go. I have to go back. And they're like, hey, just stay over here. And some TSA guy comes over, and it was TSA. So I got even more rude. And I was like, you don't understand. Like, I got to get back in. I got to get my stuff. Let me back in. You have to let me back in. And before I knew it, I was up in the air. Like, the state police had lifted me up, and then I was on the ground. Like one of them grabbed, like, my hands, and one of them grabbed my feet, and then I was on the ground, like, face first in a puddle. And I was like, yeah, like, this is awesome.
That's pretty cool.
And then so they, like, pretend to arrest me.
Yeah.
And then one of them is like, hey, like, are you okay? And I was like, yeah, I'm fine. And they're like, no, like, are you just acting? And I was like, yeah. And they're like, oh, okay. Like, we were all worried for a second that, like, something had actually happened. But what you're describing, I know, like, it's hard, stressful work, and what you do is, like, really serious. But there's a certain element about it, maybe just because I'm a sick, deranged individual, but it sounds kind of fun.
Like, I have so much fun with it.
You get to think. And I think a lot of people, like, when I was in high school, we'd have all these kids who wanted to go into the Marines, and some of them did, Some of them didn't. Some of them made the cut. Some of them didn't.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of kids I knew that wanted to go into the Marines wanted to go in for the wrong reasons. Like, they were just like, I don't know a polite way to say it, but they were just kind of dumb. Like they just
didn't
know
what to do with life.
Yeah, they were like, well, not that they like flunked out of high school, but but the reasons they had were dumb. It was like, oh, I can't wait to go like, shoot people, or like, oh, I can't wait to, fight, and it's going to be so much fun. Like, yeah. And it's like,
you'd be surprised at how many people still say that, like when they're in, we're not at war right now.
Right.
We're not in any sort of conflict or any active conflict. And we, there's still a bunch of people in that are grunts, that are not grunts, that are like, oh, I wish we were in combat. I wish we were blah, blah, blah. Yeah. I would be able to kill like 40 Hajis and blah, blah, blah. Yeah. It's like, okay. You have no idea what you'd be able to do when you're actually in the fog of war and the friction and when.
Yeah. Because they've never been.
Right. Exactly.
They haven't been in that situation.
Yeah. And nor do I wish that upon anybody.
Oh, yeah. And there are guys who do that type of stuff, and they're really good at it. And I'm very thankful for those guys.
Yeah. But
I think if you go into the military and your only desire is to like, oh, I can't wait to kill someone, it's like, dude, that's not like, I don't know.
Yeah, it's sort of a criminal mindset about it.
Yeah, and so I think because people see that mindset with some people, they assume, oh, you're a Marine, that must be all you care about.
Yeah.
But what you're doing is incredible. And there are guys I know who are in the military who, like, they have to really carefully think about the things that they do. And, like, we have friends who said, they were in the military and all they did was dig holes in, like, Afghanistan. And we do need hole diggers. Like,
realistically,
when we're in war, like, stuff like that needs to happen.
And a lot of times that's not a safe job either, because you're going up to the line to create the line. And you're just doing that week after week after week, because then you're pushing and pushing. Oh, you're getting pushed back. Now you get. So that's not a safe job either. And you got to be brave to be able to do that. A lot of people put a lot of, a lot of hate into certain jobs, and they're like, oh, well, you only do this, or because like especially with my job, a huge piece of my job is the gas chamber and training Marines. Like I have to teach 25% of E5 and below this specific 5-day course. Yeah. And depending on where you teach it, it might be 3 days, it might be 5 days. We have to teach that to 25% of the entire Marine Corps that are E5 and below. And then we have to do everybody in the entire Marine Corps every year for the gas chamber. So that's what, like, whenever anybody thinks of Sebring, they're like, oh, yeah, when's the next gas chamber? You're just going to throw my name on it? It's like, no. Yeah. You're going to actually go and get trained. Like, there's a specific reason why we train everybody in the gas chamber. And so if you're ever in a conflict and anything were to happen, you know what to do. Right. That will save your life. And there's specific reasons why we say 8 minutes to put on full mop suit. There's reasons why we say 9 seconds for the mask. But, a lot of times we actually tell them, I'm not going to pass you until you do 8 seconds because we want them to be above the standard. Yeah. But but like 9 seconds, because if Saren were to be at your feet at the average height of an adult, of an adult male, it's going to take 9 seconds for it to off gas and get up to your nose. So having the mask on is going to hugely benefit you. And then a lot of people bring up the argument, well, if it's sarin, then it's just going to go through our clothing and it's just going to go through our skin, because it can go through your skin, and then we'll just have a nerve agent affecting us that way. But it's not about that. It's about being able to do it in a certain amount of time for a specific reason. Yeah. It's not like you're actually going to be in that situation. I hope not. There should be a lot of things like keeping you from that situation. But a lot of people give a lot of different hate depending on what job you have. Like a lot of people are like, oh, admin only, paper pushers or whatever. Right. They do a lot of stuff that nobody sees. Every job does a lot of stuff that nobody sees. Yeah. And then everyone always thinks, well, I do this. I do X, Y, Z. I'm the most hard charging individual there is. And realistically, at the end of the day, right now, nobody's a hard charger. Right. Even the grunts right now are just training. Yeah. So it's kind of one of those things that a lot of people have to put their ego aside and realize that everyone's still a human at the end of the day.
Well, it takes like all kinds of different people, like even, in society, but also in the military. Like it takes all kinds of different backgrounds, all kinds of different knowledge. And it's not necessarily that, your part is more important or you're more important, but it takes everyone being able to work together to make this thing work. Yeah. And exactly. You trained so after your training, you got sent directly to Japan?
Yeah. So I went from the schoolhouse to, then I took 10 days leave to home. And then I went to Okinawa.
Yeah.
And then that's where I got very proficient in, going back a while, I said there was two main parts of CBRN.
Yeah.
So there's the hazmat response side, and then there's the S3. The S3, you're doing anything from any sort of training to specific CBRN training, from like the RC course I talked about, the gas chamber. That side is a lot more paperwork, and then the hazmat response is a lot more training, like actively doing stuff. But, in Okinawa, I was doing a lot of the hazmat response stuff, like 95% of the time that I was there.
Wow.
I did a little bit of paperwork before I left, but most of it I was either learning and training that way, or I was, and then I went to the MU, and then from there I did even more training. Like I did an extensive amount of training at the MU. We did training before we went on ship, when we were on ship, when we got back, before we got on again, when we were on, and we did a bunch of training.
Yeah.
We did a few ops as well, like on my second deployment. We actually flew off, and that was terrible. My pack weighed I think it came out to 97 pounds. And
it is a lot.
It is a lot of weight. And I don't know how I'm not shorter.
Yeah.
Because we got everything packed up, and then because we got told 8 hours before that there was not, and we're like, okay, we have these specific guidelines on where we're going to be at these specific times, and then we were going to be on the bird 2 hours before we needed to be there.
Yeah.
And so there was a lot of gear op checking that we needed to do, packing out, and then getting to the specific places. And so anyway, got there, flew off, and by the time that we actually did the op, when I was coming back, because I was the last team to go downrange, I was sampling. Decon was already starting to pick all their stuff up, which is not the way that we typically do it. And when we got there, we're like, what is going on?
Yeah.
And they're like, well, we have an emergency decon line. We're going to run you guys really quick, really through, and then that's it. And we're like, why?
Yeah.
We were in the stuff. Why are you only going to do emergency decon for us? Because we're going to put the stuff back in our bag.
Right.
And then walk in, because everything that we need, we put in our bag, we hike down with, we put back in our bag, and then we hike out with. Every little thing, all the batteries to the suits, to the heavy gas bottles, everything, to the detectors and to the cameras. And they were like, well, because we have a bird to catch. So we weren't given this option, but it was late at night. We did a night op, and we got deconned, started to get out of suit, and then Gunny Raider was like, all right, we need to catch this bird. We're like, what do you mean? It's 14 minutes is the amount of time until the bird landed at the LZ, the landing zone. Yeah. We had to get packed up and then hike to this place, which is about, I think it was only 3/4 of a mile. But what made it so much worse is as we were hiking in, it took us 2.5 hours because we could still hear the grunts lighting up the town. Right. So every time they would do that, we'd have to provide security. Yeah. And so we had 3/6, so you'd get down and watch the outside. And it took us 2.5 hours to hike 3/4 of a mile. And with a 100-pound bag, that killed my back.
I bet it did. Yeah.
And then we had to run out. Yeah. And we had to just pack everything up. When we were hiking in, my bag was packed very well. It was the weight didn't feel like 100 pounds. Yeah. When I hiked out, though, since we had such little time to pack it, I was throwing everything in there, and it weighed 120 pounds. That's what it felt like, just because it was so off balance and it was so heavy. And then we're basically running out there, and I didn't have to, but somebody else who had a lighter pack had to pick up we had 2 females, and they had to pick up one of the females' packs because she was having a rough time. She was on sampling with me, and we were both running out of there. We were already tired from just being in suit, and it was terrible. It was a bad situation to be in. But yeah, there were two options that we were never told of that night. It was either get on the bird in 33 minutes when he was initially told when I was downrange, or bivouac the night. So find shelter and sleep the night there.
Would you rather have slept
I would have rather slept the night because we didn't even fly back to our ship.
Oh no!
So on my second float, I was on the New Orleans. I was on the USS New Orleans, LPD 18, and on my first float, I was on the LHA 6, the USS America. great ship. Absolutely love that ship. Not really the New Orleans.
Yeah.
But we flew to the America and then stayed the night on the America.
Mm-hmm.
They were, getting back closer to the New Orleans because New Orleans was too far away to be able to fly to.
Yeah.
And as they were going closer, then in the morning they were close enough to be able to fly us over there in a 53. And we flew in a 222s, but we stayed the night on the America to then have to get back onto another ship.
Yeah.
And get onto the bird to fly to another ship. So it was, but what made it the worst though is like walking on ship is already tight, and then you throw a huge bag on your back, and then
I can imagine.
And then you're going up the stairs through the little holes. Like then you have to take your bag off really quick, and then you have to like shove it through the hole, push it over, hope nothing inside of it breaks, get up through the hole, grab your bag.
That sounds awful.
And then the same thing the next day, just to be able to get off that boat.
Yeah.
And I think everyone would have rather bivouacked the night.
Yeah.
And then flown to our ship the next day.
Right.
But
so aside from that, because that sounds like a really fun experience, like that.
So looking back at it, it was a great experience.
Yeah.
In the time, it was so
moment.
bad.
Oh, I'm sure it hurt so much.
All of our backs were absolutely dead. We had two of our buddies on ship. It was Elias Wadier and Cameron. I just called him Cameron. He was like one of the two dudes I actually called by first name.
That's funny.
Him and Cole. It was literally like Cole, Cameron, and Sebastian. And if anybody called one of us three by our first names, then we'd be like, "You're not in the group." We'd be like,
"That's funny."
That's
awesome.
Who said you called? Who said that you could call Cameron Cameron?
Yeah.
And
it's hilarious.
It was great.
Yeah.
And we Cameron Phillips, that's his name. Cameron and Wadier literally like for 5 days straight, and Lord bless them, they did great.
Yeah.
They would massage people's backs.
What? Really?
Like we had these little field chairs that's just
so
like,
nice.
Yeah. And it's just like kind of like an X. Yeah. And it just like comes up like this, and there's a top piece like that.
Yeah.
So it's flat on top. So we'd put one on the chest and then one on the legs, and then they would just like massage people's lower back. It wasn't like their whole back, just the lower back.
Yeah.
Because it like we all felt like our back was compressed, and that like
I bet it was.
It was so much weight.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah.
So what were your favorite parts about being in Japan aside from the training you got? I'm sure you made a lot of really close relationships.
Yeah. I'd say so okay. I was talking about how I trained the MU team when I was after I was at the MU.
Yeah.
After that was probably I'd say like the biggest moment I had in Japan, because what I did was Cameron, and Cole actually were rewriting this huge class. And this class only goes to Seaborn Marines. And at the time, only Seaborn Marines technically it's 3 MEFs. That's what, Hawaii, Korea, and Japan. Only those 3 places could get this class of Seaborn Marines specifically. Okay. So a small group of Marines in a small country, like in a small portion of the world, could get this one class that we were teaching. So we rewrote it, and then we taught it. And I probably taught 3 iterations of the class, I think. And it was only to Seaborn Marines, and this brought people from being 5711s to 5713s, which is like, it's the MOS code.
Sure,
which is just like our job title. And so it went from being 5711 Seaborn Defense Specialist to 5713 Hazmat Response Specialist. And there were only 5713s in 3 MEF. And realistically, only in Okinawa.
Oh, wow.
There was one in Japan because he flew down to be in the course. Yeah. And that was probably the best thing that I did, because I was actually able to teach that. I was setting up all the ops for that too. It was 2.5 weeks long. And I taught quite a bit of the classes, and
that's cool.
Yeah. Cameron, and Cole taught it because we were all from different, there's 3 main entities for Seaborn platoons in Okinawa, and we were each one from one. So I was from the MA, Cole was from the MLG, and Cameron was from the Div. And we got together, taught it, and then we had Marines from each come to us and get taught. And it was a great time. It was I really like that aspect of teaching. Yeah. Where it's teaching but also like hands-on training. and the physicality of it, and you can really see the development of it in a week and a half because you see the first op. We would say, all right, first thing we're gonna do is an op. We're gonna let you choose what place you want to be in,
right?
And then after that, whatever we see, like then we're gonna change it up, and everyone was in every role and everything, and either that or my first deployment, I was the Science Marine. That was the technical name of my.
That's the actual name.
Technical name of the billet is Science Marine.
That's funny.
So out of the, I forget if it was technically 16 Marine team or if it was 15.
Yeah.
But there was this is how it was broken up. It was and I'll do it from me going down to you. It was the IC, and then there were 3 different teams. You had recon. You had the support team, which was sampling and decon. Oh no, sampling and extract. And so that was typically a 4-man team. And then you had decon. And then, so if this is the IC going down to these 3, then you had me over here.
Yeah.
I wasn't in charge of anybody, and the only person that I reported to was the IC. So all of these 3 have team leaders. So there's like 1 team leader, 1 team leader, 2 team leaders. Oh, I guess there's not 2 team leaders. Because you had an extract team leader, a sampling team leader, and then you had a recon 1, recon 2 team leader. And because it was 4, 4, 3, 1, 1. And what's that math? 4, 4, 3 is what? 11, 12. Yeah, so 15.
Yeah.
And, well, okay, no, that's 13. But then we had our staff and and OIC, the 15. So, yeah, I didn't report to anybody except for the IC. So that's what I did.
So you're just over here by yourself, just kind of.
Yeah.
Just the Science Marine, doing whatever you want.
Exactly. Well, not whatever I want.
Right.
Like whenever people are downrange, and then they would ride you over, and they'd be like, "Hey, we found a 35-gallon jug." It's like, and I'd come over and I'd be like, "All right, look for a CAS number. Look for a UNIC number. Look for any sort of label. If there was any sort of label, I had this really cool thing. It's called a tough book." Like just like one of those really, really tough.
The really rugged laptops.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And on there was a program called the Hazmaster.
What?
The Hazmaster has a really few cool programs on it.
Yeah. Like Minesweeper.
No, but it had one where you could go in and you could say, okay, I have a crater this big,
right,
and I know it was this explosive. How much of the explosive was used?
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah, it was really. Or you could be like, I have this much of this material.
Right.
How big of a crater will it create? And it was called the Crater Creator, or something like that. It was.
This was really. That's so funny.
It was like
Science Marine.
I would literally
Creator.
I would just be playing with it. And like whenever people haven't come up, they're downrange. They haven't said anything.
Yeah,
I just be
That's so funny.
Creating new craters and
craters. Yeah, there you go.
It was awesome.
Yeah.
But they would come back and they'd be like, all right, cool. We found let's just say we found atchbeam and 2PM chloride, and I'd be like, okay, atchbeam and 2PM chloride. What is that? Blah blah. That's an ATNA. It's an auto nerve agent auto injector. It's a anti nerve agent auto injector is what it stands for. Anyway, so if they were to say that, I would put it in there, and then it would tell me what. Or if they were to say, okay, we found this colorless, fine powder that, and then like if they had any sort of, like smell or taste, coloration, and if there was anybody that was exposed to it, then any signs and symptoms, and I could put all that stuff into it, and then it would give me like a confidence bar, like out of 5.
Oh wow! Of
what chemicals it could be.
Yeah.
And so it was super cool. I also have an app on my phone. It's called. Technically, it doesn't work anymore. I don't think it should work.
Yeah.
Oh, it does work.
Was it taken off the App Store?
No, it February 2nd. It was decommissioned, and I got an email about this saying that Wiser, because that's the name of the app, WYSER, Wiser, is taken off. But yeah, on this you can like, if you see in the middle it says help identify.
Yeah.
So from there, you can, and then if you go to the top one, then it'll be like the properties, symptoms, categories, NFPA, transport. So if you have any placards of anything, then you can put it in there and it'll start listing off chemicals. If you have signs and symptoms,
that's cool.
It'll shorten that list and put it. And yeah, it's super cool.
I wonder why they like decommissioned it.
I think it's because, yeah, no, I have
hopefully people weren't using it like in like a bad way.
I don't really know of a bad way to use it though.
Yeah.
But yeah, because I would use that if I had service anywhere, then I would use that in conjunction with the Hazmaster.
Yeah.
And I'd be like, what am I getting? Look at the Hazmaster, look at this, and be like,
that's cool.
Yeah. And then from there, if you're getting like these random chemicals you don't know, go back to the basics. Because like I was getting these weird things, and I was like, I have no idea what this chemical is, and I'd look into it because it would have a certain description to it. I'd look into it, and then I'd be like, okay, well, this could be used for, this sort of nerve agent or this blood agent, this blister agent. And then I'd just like go down number by number and just like look at which one.
Yeah.
They'd give me new information. I'd shorten the list down, and same thing. And then I was like, I would never figure it out. And the reason why is because I would overcomplicate things.
Yeah.
And I would be like, well, this is saying that it's this.
Right.
And then I would literally go down one by one to figure out, well, what could those things make?
Yeah.
And then I wasn't thinking about like the big picture of it.
Right.
Because if I know the signs and symptoms, you can pretty much tell what it is.
And
then, but I'm just looking at it like chemical wise.
Right.
What could the chemical be?
Yeah.
I don't really care what the chemical is. Chemical could be, 30 different things that do the same thing to the body, but we know what type of chemical warfare agent that is.
Yeah.
So I would just look at it too narrow-mindedly.
Right.
But I had to say that was either my funnest job was being the science marine, because it was supposed to be someone else. It was supposed to be Seddon, and he was like already declared, like they were like, all right, this job is going to be Seddon's throughout CREX. He's going to be, or we're going to run random people through, but he's going to be, they're like, Slade's going to be the IC, Seddon is going to be the science marine, and then all of you are trying to fill in slots for the other, and we're going to put you where you best fit.
Yeah.
But for that week of CREX, you're going through every position, so they're seeing where you fit best.
Yeah.
And who you work with best.
Yeah.
And then I was like, can I be science marine for this job? And they're like, yeah, sure. And I asked, and they kept saying no. And then finally they said yes for letting me be science marine for one out.
So funny.
And then I blew out their minds on what I was doing, and they're like,
that's cool.
All right, you're gonna be science marine. I was like,
yeah.
Yes. It was the most skate job I ever did.
Yeah.
It was so easy.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, from what you were saying earlier about using your brain, when I'd say it's not the most intellectual job, but there's a lot of different things you always need to be considering when you're doing it.
Yeah.
Like some jobs that you're really using your brain in the Marine Corps, but sometimes there's jobs where you get told shut up and drive, and you just go.
Yeah.
And I think mine, there's a lot of different things you have to always be considering.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. I appreciate you taking the time to explain a lot of that. It's stuff that I think the general public doesn't really consider. A lot of us get to live in a world that's safe and calm, and we have different people in place to take care of situations when things like that happen. But you afford us the opportunity to not have to think about it on a daily basis, because that's what you do. And so it's really cool to hear about that stuff and think about it, so we don't have to do it on a regular basis.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I've a really fun time doing it. So
yeah.
Well,
thanks so much for coming on. I really appreciate you having you here. I would love to have you on another time. It just seemed like you have so many incredible stories and just experiences to share, and I really appreciate how knowledgeable and passionate you are about your subject. It's something that I don't think I would do well at for multiple reasons, mostly because of the science stuff.
Yeah.
But it's really nice to know that people are in place doing those types of things. So thanks so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, of course.